everybody, welcome back. We're continuing with some load development today. I got roughly 100 pieces of once fired Winchester brass from my 6.8 Western. I took measurements, brand new brass. So I have two lots of brass here. Some that came in factory loaded ammunition, once fired through my rifle, and some brand new brass I bought from Winchester, never fired, never loaded, and loaded in some ammunition there. So with that lot of brand new brass right from the factory, unloaded, I did some measurements, like the full case length of that brass, the inside neck diameter, the outside neck diameter, the neck junction area right before the neck, and then the base and also the headspace of the cartridge. So it's kind of good to get all these measurements on a lot of 5. I did 5 pieces of brass, got all those measurements for each, just to begin my load process at the very beginning. So I took just some base measurements of unfired brass. Then, through once firing, I took the same measurements on a lot of 5. So again, the full case length, how much that grew or shrunk, the inside neck diameter, would increase after firing, the outside the same, base usually stays close to the same, but may grow a little bit to the size of your chamber, neck junction, and headspace, most likely to grow. Again, headspace is that spot between the base and a predetermined amount at the neck. So you use your headspace comparator as such, and it is just a comparator, right? It's not the exact amount in SAMI, but this could be placed on the neck like this in your calipers. So let's focus there, and that determines the headspace. So it's interesting to take measurements with new brass after firing. And then one more measurement I did was, of course, resizing after the once fire. So to determine how much I resize, I was shooting for a 2/1000 shoulder bump. In essence, 2/1000 smaller than a fired case when measuring headspace. So the headspace would be 1.675 on one particular cartridge after firing, and then with the 2/1000 shoulder bump, I would get roughly 1.673, if it was just 2/1000. Of course, after one firing, not all the brass is perfectly the same headspace. It usually takes 2 to 3 firings to get all the brass worked into a consistent chamber size headspace, right? So not bad consistencies in headspace variation after one firing. I'm seeing this is after a fired case, not resize, 1.674 to 1.675. So it's about 2/1000 variance in headspace right now, which isn't bad but not great, because after a couple more firings it would true up to one stable headspace measurement. So of course, when you're resizing, those variations is going to translate into the resize case. So I took an average of my headspace after that one firing before sizing, and it's around 1.674 was the average of 5 cases. So on an average, I want to bump that 2/1000 back. So my target when resizing is 1.672 for headspace. And then, so before resizing, I tumbled all my brass in just a wet tumbler by Frankfurt Arsenal. Let that run 15-20 minutes. Everything came out nice and shiny. It wasn't even that dirty of brass. I never let it fall on the ground or anything, so that was pretty simple. After that, I lubed up the cases and sized them. And sizing, for my target bump of 1.672, I actually got an average of 1.672 out of all the 5 cases I had. So that worked out pretty good. I see a couple cases at 1.672, obviously, and the 1.671. The biggest was 1.673, but again, the average is 1.672 shoulder bump. So that's where we'll target for our reloads. The next step of the process is trimming, whether or not that is necessary after one firing. Again, I took some measurements of my overall case, or my just case length without the bullet, right? Sammy for the 6.8 Western is 2.020, right? And then for mine, I was all mostly still under that. There was a couple that was 2.021, just 1/1000th longer. All of it was a little shorter than that, which is what you kind of want. So some would say don't begin trimming until the brass is fully grown after 2 or 3 firings, which may be true. But with this Winchester brass, I have, a couple dings in the necks after firing, or whether it was not perfectly deburred and chamfered. So I'm going to go ahead and just knock off a very little bit with this Frankfurt Arsenal case trimmer. So just take a little bit off of the case length. Like my average after firing is already pretty short at 2.012 when Sammy is 2.020. So I'm just going to have that knocked off. In a perfect world, you would knock off 5/1000ths from after a couple firings. So I'm just going to target, 2.015 or 2.018 for my case length at this time, because the brass is still going to grow. But mainly I'm just going to knock off a little bit and then chamfer and deburr, which is really going to clean up the necks. I've already done a couple here, and you can really tell a difference how well the bullet is accepted when you have a nice chamfer deburred neck. So I'm not taking off too much brass at this time, but mainly cleaning up those necks for a better bullet reception. So I'll show you some footage of here what we're doing on the Frankfurt Arsenal. It's going pretty quick so far. And then from there, we're going to start priming the cases. So this is an example, I don't know if it's going to focus here, of a neck that has not been chamfered, trimmed, deburred at all. Try to get some better footage of that. Then here is one that has, I don't know if it's going to focus here. You can see that shininess there in the neck. It's going to be a lot smoother for the bullet to go in there. Alright, we're continuing with our ladder, but dissecting the shots that had the best standard deviation and flat spots. So I'm picking 5 charges, and I'm picking 3 of each charge. So we're gonna load up again with H1000. We're gonna use our 175 grain Sierra Tip Game King. We're gonna load up at each of these charges and then shoot for groups this time as well as velocities and see what kind of standard deviations we get for each load. So the smallest charge of the day is going to be 61.8 grains. Let's go ahead and put a bullet. Check our base dull drive here. .334. We'll see if that's consistent. Yeah, we had 330 before. Let's give it another tap. This is a compressed load at this point, so it's sometimes takes the bullet a little bit to settle.